Since writing the last book and working on the film project, I mean, one of the major inspirations for us, people I've been working with, has been Buckminster Fuller and the idea of taking a design science approach to society's problems. And what's really extraordinary is how many solutions there are available, but how they've been available for in some cases decades, but we've lacked the collective social will to get them, distributed on a mass level. And especially, I think, you guys have been, dealing with the money issue all week, but I think in between something like Thomas Greco's idea around mutual credit clearing associations, Bernard Lietaer's idea of negative interest currency that has a demurrage charge. We could systemically redesign money so that it flows into the benefit of local communities and becomes something sustainable. I mean, one way to look at it, a model is that we were in the day. I guess this might be in the David Horton's work too. That we've been in this kind of immature growth phase. It's almost like adolescence where you use up all the resources around you, and now we have to somehow shift into an adult responsibility phase, and really, come to realization of our responsibility, and it's going to be really interesting. I wonder, everywhere I go, the amount of privilege, people like us have, I was at the Bioneers conference, there are all these talks about this and that, but then it's still, Mexican laborers who are cleaning the toilets and taking care of everything, if you really were to, a friend of mine did a thing where he amortized out, how much, money would be available, if everybody was to have an equal amount of money on the planet, it would be about $7,500 a year, per person. It would actually have to be less if you went down to, if you considered, the deterioration of the planetary resources. So that's a super challenge. I also really agree with Buckminster Fuller that it's a question of utopia or oblivion, that either we make a world that works well for everybody on the planet, or we're not going to make it as a species. It's too easy now for technologies of destruction to become available to people who are disenfranchised. And basically, none of those people are any different than us, so we have to figure out how to, elevate their consciousness and their way of life, as we perhaps bring down ours a bit, So anyway, so Evolver has taken this kind of self-organizing model where we now have 30 spores around, and that hopefully that'll keep growing. And we create a theme, kind of working with the regional coordinators, and then they, will do it. One was on alternative health. One was on. The next one is on food. We did one called Beyond Money, which was introducing time banks and all these other ideas to people. So it's a way, because obviously one of the big problems we have out now is people, maybe especially young people, well, everybody really, lacks are not informed about either the level of critical problems that we're facing or all of the potential solutions that are available. So we're hoping to help this self-organization of information, and then also actually give people tangible ways to plug in. Probably our most successful group outside of New York so far is Atlanta. They actually self-organized an Evolver Fest over the summer with about 300, 400 people in attendance. And they've actually begun to engage in permaculture projects together, and working on a bunch of them have started working with a urban aquaponics company, creating these modules that can go to any rooftop in the world. In terms of solutions, like somebody we interviewed for our film is doing this urban aquaponics project, and apparently if you had these things on every rooftop in New York, 80% of the food for New York City could be grown right in the city. It's just like in every area when you dig underneath and sort of look at it in a certain perspective, there are tremendous solutions available. Somehow we just have to catalyze the will to activate them. So if you're interested in joining the Evolver Spores or checking them out, Regina is actually our San Francisco coordinator. And how have you found it so far?
It's been really cool. It feels like a lot of people who wanted to connect have been able to quickly form connections with one another, and there's a lot of synchronicities coming off of that, and people that need to be working together, finding each other, and a lot of energy.
I mean, and it's kind of funny. I mean, the original reason that I partnered with my business partner Ken, and we started the Evolver, he'd been working with Planet Work, with Jim Fournier, and they'd done a whole think tank around using digital technology for progressive social purposes. And out of that think tank come this paper, Augmented Social Networks. And what they had realized was that there was a kind of missing protocol, or missing level of the internet, which they talked about as a user-centric, basically user-centric profiling. The idea that at the moment, like you go to all these sites on the internet, but your identity is not held anywhere. So Amazon doesn't recognize that you're part of Rainforest Action Network. If you wanted them to recognize that, or et cetera, et cetera. What we have, I mean, I think that's a big gap in terms of the progressive movement's ability to self-organize. Because what we have in the progressive community is still kind of like an individuation crisis. In kind of Jungian terms, like people, get their ego gets bound up with a certain organization or a certain structure, and then there's like boundary issues with other organizations. I mean, the reason the right wing, I think, is in some respects, I know they lost the last election, but has been more effective than the left in this country, has been because it's simple to organize in a pyramid. I mean, we're used to that. How do we create self-organizing systems that actually can work together? And it really does seem like there's a missing protocol with the internet. So Ken had been working with technologists who were developing this protocol, and the idea was that for somewhere between $2 million, $750,000, you could then build this layer and begin to kind of layer it in. So the idea is that a user would have their own data, and they could choose what they shared with any organization. But then they could also allow organizations to recognize them as the same person. I mean, you see a little bit of this with like OpenID and stuff like that. This was kind of a deeper level of it. So hopefully we'll at some point be able to work that back into what we're trying to do. I definitely, and we have, that's sort of came out of that same discussion we had on Monday and Tuesday, but it's definitely a missing piece, and I think the progressive community is really hampered without it,
What is your website?
RealitySandwich.com. Reality Sandwich has new content every day. And it's been interesting because part of what we've been trying to do, I'm sorry.
I'm going to write up your hand up charts.
It's been interesting. We've been trying to find like a juncture between user-generated content and professionally edited and filtered content. But we divide it into different areas like, life, psyche, echo.